Hello, everybody. How are you today?
Hi, Vicky. All good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Hi, Vicky. All good, thank you.
Hello.
Yourself?
That's good. Yeah, good.
That's good.
Afternoon, ma'am.
All right. We've got another minute or so. Does anyone have any questions they want to ask at the beginning? I'm going to talk a little bit about the assessment task towards the end. I did want to mention actually that the library has got a workshop tomorrow from 12 till 1 New South Wales time, 11 till 12 Queensland time for introduction to APA 7th referencing. I will just put the link in the chat in case you are interested in having a look at that or registering for that. All right, I'm going to share my screen now and then I won't be able to see you anymore, but Reb is here as well, so Reb will keep an eye on the chat. So if you want to put anything in the chat, Reb will keep an eye on that. If you want to talk, you can just interrupt me to let me know that you want to talk. Okay? Sharing. All right. So this is workshop number 2, and we are going to talk about what's happening inside the learner's brain today. I'm going to start off with the acknowledgement of country. So I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet and learn, and pay my respects to their elders past and present. I also extend that respect to any First Nations people joining us today. Okay, so the plan for today is to sort of explore how the brain and the body and the mind are all interacting during the learning. And we're going to talk a little bit about biological and perceptual development and how that shapes what learners can do. And then we're going to try to link these ideas into the Assessment 1 task. And I have a little Menti to warm up. I will just stick that in the chat as well. So you can click on that and another tab will open if you prefer to do it on your phone. I will type the number in so that you can get it. Okay, and the number is in there. All right, so let's have a think about what we see when learning is happening. So what sort of things, behaviors are the learners doing when they are learning? I don't need to hide those because there's no, yep, curious, repetition, yep, imitation, all good. Playfulness, that's a good one. Yep, they have to focus their attention, asking questions. They might also be talking to each other, having a discussion about things. So these are the sorts of things we're going to see while they're learning, but we're going to have a look today at the biological and cognitive processes that make up those behaviours. So we're sort of, I'm trying to break it down into parts of the body that are participating. So the body is gathering information through the senses and through movement. And you will have noticed in the reading that there was some stuff about gross motor skill development and fine motor skill development. And then you've got the brain, which is processing and organizing and strengthening connections through experiences. And in the content for this week, I put a lot of information there about the information processing theory, and that's what we're focused in the tutorial for this week as well. And the mind is using those patterns to think and reason and make meaning of all the things that are happening. All right, so movement connects the body and the brain. And as I mentioned, I talked about the gross motor skills, so balance and coordination. And then as they grow, so drawing on our knowledge from last week when we looked at the different development frameworks, as they grow, they're going to get better at balancing and coordinating. Their fine motor skills are going to develop. So, they'll first be able to pick up things and stick them in their mouths. And then, by the time they get ready for learning at school, they're going to be able to hold the pen and write and things like that. As a side note, physical activity is also really helpful for focus and well-being. So it's not just, you can't have them all sitting down in the chair all day, every day. They have to be able to move around to help with their focus as well. And that meant it didn't start by itself. I tried a different thing this morning where I put the Menti on the same slide. I don't know if I'm going to love it or not love it, but which skill best represents fine motor development? So whether we're talking about these movement skills like balance and coordination and writing, or whether we're talking about cognitive skills that your brain is doing, either way, those skills develop because of the connections between the nerve cells in our brains. Let's have a look. There we go. So cutting with scissors would be fine motor development, and the other two would be gross motor development. The other thing that the content for this week looks at is perceptual development, so making sense of what's happening around you and sort of taking that information in through our senses. So we're learning through sight, sound, touch, movement, and all of those things. And then the brain has to organize and interpret that information from the senses. So for example, when a child learns to catch a ball, they're using vision. You throw the ball to them, they're watching the ball the whole time. So they're tracking it with their vision. They're using senses called proprioception to position their body in space so that they're in the right place to catch the ball. And then they're using timing to coordinate the movement to catch the ball. And all of those things are originating in their brain. So people that were saying visual aids in the last little Menti, that's why those sorts of things are important. So hands-on activities and visual aids and physical demonstrations can all help to support deeper learning than just doing a task. And the same as with our cognitive learning, the perceptual skill improve with practice and feedback, so we might be really bad at catching the ball to start with, but then, as as the links in our brain, in our cerebellum in particular, start to get stronger and stronger, we get better and better at catching the ball. So it's practice and feedback with the motor skills, just the same as it is with the cognitive skills. All right. And then last week I mentioned just very briefly about the critical and sensitive periods. So I found this graph here where I can show you development along the bottom there, and plasticity is, ability to change sort of thing. So you can see that at certain periods of time, we've got a very strong ability to change, so very high plasticity. But we can still change, even when we're over here. So we have a high ability to change over here and less of an ability to change over here, but we still can change. So sensory information tends to develop first, and then we've got our motor and language skills developing second, and then we've got our higher cognitive skills developing last. So we've got a very big window of development for the cognitive skills. But yeah, for those of you who are interested in how that works, there's a paper there that you can have a read of if you're into the science of that. All right, so I mentioned before that when we're using our brain, the neurons are communicating to each other via nervous impulses. And those are electrical signals that are traveling through the networks. So I've got a little picture here where we've got a group of 3 nerve cells, and then these little areas here are called the synapses, and that's where the nerves talk to each other. When synapses repeatedly fire, the synapses, the little buds at the end there, get bigger and bigger, and sometimes they can even split into 2. So then you've got 2 connections there instead of 1. And that's what we mean when we say that the neurons connect through experience. I think I wrote it on the content sheet, neurons that fire together, wire together, is the little reminder thing that they came up with when they first discovered that that's how it works. And they also said neurons that fire out of sync lose their link. So if they stop firing together, one after the other in quick succession, then those links get smaller and smaller and they might disappear altogether. So repetition strengthens the connections between the neurons, and neurons connect into little networks that, when once one fires, it'll connect the next one, the next one, the next one, and that'll help you pull information into your working memory. Pruning refines. So there's some information in the content this week that talks about adolescent brains. So from that slide I showed you before, we're getting more and more development of our higher cognition the older we get. And the way that plays out with children is that your brain gets more and more and more and more connections. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then when you are an adolescent, there's a really big phase of pruning and restructuring that happens. And you might notice if you're teaching in high school, there's sort of around that sort of year 9 to 10 phase, the students are a little bit more unruly. I think when I went to school, I went to a Catholic school in New South Wales, and in year 9, we were the worst year 9 that had ever been at that school, and all our parents got called up to the school because we were so terrible. And I'm sure, and I noticed myself, it is really hard when all of the kids' brains are rewiring at the same time. This little point down here about emotions and safety helping learning stick. If you think about things like what you had for dinner last night, or what you had for dinner last Tuesday night or last Wednesday night, you might not be able to remember what you had. But if you thought about what you had for dinner on your birthday when you went out for dinner with all of your friends and had a really super time, you probably can remember. Okay, so things, when emotions get tied to memories, it can help them stick even better than with no emotions. And I mentioned the safety stuff last week. So if you're in fight or flight mode, if you've got really bad anxiety and you're always concerned about your environment and whether you're safe, you haven't got as much energy to put into these connections that are being made between your neurons. All right. So which of these statements, whoop, hang on. I would like that to not show responses. Yes, okay. Which of these statements best describes how the brain learns?
Here.
Yep.
Sorry, Ben here. How are we responding other than the comments in that section? Is there?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just put it in the chat, but it might have been before you got here. So I'll just pop it in there again. That's all right. So I've got a thing called Menti. If you click on that, it will take you directly, it'll open up another tab. If you prefer to do it on your phone instead, you just go to that menti.com up the top there and you put that code in. Yep, Rebecca's put the code in for me.
All right, thank you.
All right, so code there for everybody and link there for everybody if you would like to participate in the questions. Okay, so not drawing on the whiteboard, going to the Menti, because that will stay on the next slide. We had a little bit of that last week, staying on the next slide. All right, getting lots of responses in.
Vicky, while we're waiting for the responses, I'm just wondering whether you can explain, maybe that's why my daughter who's in year 7 has suddenly forgotten how to do a whole heap of household tasks that she was able to do very well when she was 4, when she was 5. I don't understand it. You know, she cannot pick a
Yes,
tile up off the floor. She cannot put a shoe away. Pruning.
yes, that's right. Or she might have discovered weaponized incompetence.
Yeah.
All right, let's have a look what everybody thinks. Lots for the brain grows connections through experiences. And it does, okay? So whenever you're having different experiences or practicing something over and over again, you are strengthening that connection at the synapse. It does store it a little bit like a computer, but it's not quite the same. When you have an experience, okay, you are bringing things in through all of your senses, and they're not, so when you remember that, it's not packaged as one little file in your brain that's my birthday from 2025 and everything that happened there. It actually goes to all different areas of your brain depending on the sense. So some of it's going to go to where you know, eye things happen, and some's going to go where ear things happen, and some's going to go where smell happens. And then you have to reassemble that memory when you want to think about it. And that's why eyewitness things are not always as reliable as you hope they would be. And there's lots of videos you can have a look at on YouTube where they do a little crime scene and they'll act something out, and then they'll ask people what they remember, and they all remember different things because you've got to repackage that. You've got to pull it back from all of the places. So not exactly like a computer, a little bit like a computer, but not all in one spot together. And I'm glad that nobody put learning is fixed by age 10, because that would be a very fixed mindset. way of viewing the brain, and the brain is actually much more plastic than that. All right, so in 1 or 2 words, what experiences do you think best help the brain to grow? If someone wants to speak about something, you can do that as well. So if you want to tell me a little story or something you've seen. What kind of experiences do you think? Yes, getting enough sleep. That's right. That's a really important part, actually. While you sleep, that's when things get moved properly into your long-term memory. So sleeping is really important. And attention is definitely important. You're not going to remember something you didn't pay attention to. New experiences is true too. Anything that's novel or new, you're going to remember more than the general mundane things that you do every single day. Nutrition is good. So lots of good answers there. Problem solving. Look at that. Awesome. Go for a walk. Yes. They're very good answers. All right. So we're going to have a look at a case study about movement and coordination. And in the tutorial part for this week is where I'm going to talk about the information processing theory. So we've got Sam. He's 5 years old. He loves any activity that involves running, climbing, or movement, but he finds fine motor tasks like cutting or writing quite difficult. His teacher describes him as bright and curious, but notes that he's easily distracted and finds it hard to stay seated for long periods. Based on what we've discussed so far, think about what might be happening inside Sam's body and brain. All right, so his gross motor control is clearly very well developed because he feels confident when he's running and climbing. So the parts of his brain that are looking after that are, looking pretty good. But his fine motor control and sustained attention are still developing. He's only 5, so when we looked last week at the developmental timelines, we wouldn't necessarily expect that he's going to be good at, using scissors or writing yet. So they'll still be strengthening their connections. Moving around might actually help him manage his attention because that might be a form of self-regulation for him. So when we ask Sam to sit still for long periods of time, we might be removing one of the best tools he has for managing his focus. Okay, so this one is just a chat prompt. I don't have a Menti slide for this one. So in the chat, in a few words, type one idea about how you might support Sam in the classroom. So it could relate to the physical environment or the task structure or opportunities for movement. What do we think we might be able to do? Yep, regular movement breaks. Yep, different stations around the room. I like that. A standing desk. Hands-on tasks. Yep. He likes the hands-on exploring stuff. Yep. All really good. Awesome work. All right, so let's have a look what I thought. Actually, I've got a Menti and we're going to rank things. So in this one, I want you to rank from most helpful to least helpful. Yes, problem solving, I like that. We've got to remember that they're still little scientists. So they like to explore their environment. They're in fairly early stages of Piaget's developmental phases. I'm sure that some of these tasks that I've got listed here would have been higher up the ranking, you know, in the past than they are now. All right, let's have a look at how that's going. Okay, so flexible seating and movement, hands-on tasks and manipulatives, and revisiting skills through different senses are all really good. Some of these others, like sit still and listen reminders or long seated tasks to build stamina, they might have been more popular some years back where it sort of felt like it was being a bit more orderly, but it's actually interfering with the attention and learning for these younger students. So the key idea here is that effective teaching works with developmental processes, not against them. So I want to talk mainly about the assessment task today. How's everyone going with that? See if I can get your screen back up so I can see you all again. Show video panel. All right. Okay, I've got the screen back up again. Does anyone have any questions about the assessment task? So you've got that task one, you're going to select 3 to 4 of the items. There's 6 items altogether. And you are going to write 2,000 words in total. So for example, you might divvy that up as 250 words for each of 4 different things, or you might, you know, write 600 words on one thing and less words on another thing and only do 3 things. Okay, so it's a little flexible. But the key is that you need to link the theory and some examples. So for a couple of them, it says hypothetical examples, and for a couple of them, it sort of says within your KLA. I had a question, KLA seemed to be an abbreviation that not everybody knew. So I answered a question in the discussion board about that and put a link. KLA means key learning area. So it's just things like if you teach English or you teach maths or you teach music or whatever you teach, that's your KLA. But I did put a link to the New South Wales KLAs if you are interested in having a look at that. The content that we've covered over the last 2 weeks matches up best with those 3 items. So the nature versus nurture we looked at last week. We looked at Piaget and Vygotsky last week, and we're looking at information processing theory this week. So if you put those 2 weeks together, you'll be right to answer item 2. And item 3 is about vision and perception, but it's going a little bit deeper than the information that I've given you in the online content. Okay, and don't forget that we've got that reflective writing quick guide, which I linked to in the folder to show you different ways of writing reflectively.
Hi, Vicky. Sorry, I have a quick question about the
Yep.
assessment. Do we need to save the assessment in PDF format or not?
I might just defer to Reb for a second for that one. Is it PDF or doc, or is it either?
Either's fine.
Okay,
Either's
cool.
fine. I think I actually think that Word document is preferred, but either is fine.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
No worries.
Yep.
It's
And
the
I mentioned, sorry, Rebecca, sorry. I mentioned to my tutorial group this morning that yesterday I got an email saying that we could set up draft drop boxes in Blackboard. So I've got quite a lot of teaching today, but by tomorrow I will set up the draft Dropbox so that you can submit to that over the next week or so and get your plagiarism reports and stuff like that so that you can make any adjustments you want to make before you hand it in. You can hand it in multiple times on the proper link as well. If you do it more than 3 times, it takes 24 hours to get your plagiarism report back on that any after the 3rd time. All right, so
excuse me, Vicky.
item
Question.
oh, yep, go.
Just a
Yep.
question in the chat here. If I haven't conducted teaching practice, how should I approach my reflection writing? So you're reflecting more on the key topics that are being mentioned in each of the items on the assessment task, and you're coming up with a hypothetical example. So it doesn't need to be an example, a classroom in practice example, something that you've actually done. You're just coming up with, whatever example you can think up would be a good example of what you've just, the theoretical topics that you've just reflected upon. So if you haven't done any prac, that won't be a problem with this assessment.
Okay, I think I had one more slide I was going to show, which was the criterion number 3. So I'm just going to pop back over so you can have a look at that. So in the first workshop, we looked at criteria 1 and 2. So 1 was about the theory, 2 was about making the links to your reflection and sort of, what you think. And then 3 is about writing style. So make sure your writing style is clear and professional and delivers a coherent flow of ideas. Make sure you are supporting all the things that you say with reasoning or sources. You're allowed to use things like Grammarly to check your writing, but you just have to put it in you have to acknowledge the source, okay, that you've used it. You have to say what AI you've used. And I found this library here. So this is the APA 7 guide, LibGuide from the library, and it tells you how to reference different Gen AIs. Okay, so I'll just put that in the chat, but that was quite easy to find. All right, as I mentioned last week, the thing about the Gen AI, you're allowed to use it, but try not to, you just can't believe it all the time, okay? So it's still not totally correct about things. Like I mentioned, I chat probably, a couple of times a week, sometimes every day with the chatbot on various things to help me get things done. And that's okay because I know when it's telling me porky pies. So I sort of can recognize when it's not giving me information that isn't correct, and I can say, well, that's not correct, and I need to go and check that and make sure that I've got the correct information. If you don't have a clear understanding of some of the theory things, then what it says might look legit, but it's not. Okay, so if you're going to use it, you have to be checking and making sure that the information is actually correct. All right, well, that was a bit shorter than I thought it was going to be. I thought you guys might talk more.
Vicky, there's a few questions coming up in the chat about the assignment. Some people are asking general questions in the assignment task sheet. So make sure before you come to us with questions that you're very familiar with the task sheet and you've looked at all of the resources there regarding the assignment, and that you turn up for the tutorials, because lots of information is given in the tutorials. If you have a look at the final criterion on the marking rubric, it does say that a minimum of 5 references are required for this assignment to pass that final criterion. So here we are, criterion 4, it's worth 10% of your mark for the entire assignment. So to get a satisfactory, which is a pass, it says here that you need to have at least 5 high-quality peer-reviewed academic sources. So if you've used sources that are in the course materials that are still not peer-reviewed, that's okay. That's part of your 5, but you need to have 5 overall. So, you know, don't have junk in there like YouTube videos. Make sure it's scholarly. If you have fewer than 5, we will need to give you a fail on that 4th criterion.
Yeah, because even the fail there, so the one right at the end, it says does not meet the minimum requirement of at least 5. Okay, so every single one, you have to have at least 5. So you're talking about a number of different theories and things, and it should be pretty easy for you to get 5. Okay, so if you're talking about Vygotsky and Piaget and information processing, that's 3. You need to have 3 to talk about that. Don't use me, okay, and don't use the stuff that I've written on Blackboard. Okay, those are not scholarly references. I'm just collating information to help you to learn. When you go to, I keep going to say the wrong name for this thing. When you go to Blackboard and you go to the content, I try to give you quite a number of references. Some of them are scholarly, most of them are scholarly, but not all of them are scholarly. Okay, so if you have a look here, textbooks are scholarly. So when I link out to a textbook, that's a scholarly reference. Okay, when I link to something like, so those are scholarly references. See how I've got textbook style there? But sometimes I'll link to something like a YouTube video, or I might link to the Very Well Mind or something like that. Those are not scholarly. Okay, that's like Khan Academy and stuff like that. So that wouldn't be counted as scholarly. And don't forget, you can access all kinds of other resources through the library. So the library subscribes to a bunch of things, and if you are logged in, you can get those journal articles straight from the library.
Well, just another point on referencing. So when you're formatting your assignment, so put in your items. So whether you're doing 3 or 4 items, so you'll say, you know, first of all, I'm responding to item 2, blah, blah, blah. You'll put item 2. Then you'll say, now I'm responding to item 5, blah, 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 put item 5. And at the end of all of your items, just put 1 reference list. So you don't need to have 1 reference list per item. You don't need to have 5 references per item. Just have 1 main reference list at the end of your assignment that has all of them. So 5 references across all of your items.
And don't forget that there is an exemplar. So if you go to the assessment area and you go to assessment 1, you can see that there is example of previous work, example reference list, and how to structure the references. Okay, so we do have quite a lot of resources in the folder for you to use.
Hi, Vicky. I have a question. This is
have
Jesper.
question.
Oh, sorry.
Got
Go
2
ahead.
questions at once. Just okay. Who was that? I saw you, Jasper, but I didn't catch who that other person was.
And do we need to attach our cover sheet along with this statement, along with this assessment? Means, or we have to post it in a separate?
No, you put the. I think you put the cover sheet with the assignment. Is that all right, Reb?
Yes, that's correct.
All good.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you. Thank you.
My question is back to referencing one thing. One thing that's come up before when I've been using a concept or an idea from a specific author, but it was in the context of a chapter in a textbook. Like, for instance, if I'm taking an idea or a concept from, say, Vygotsky, and it's coming from one of the chapters from educational learning theories. Do I still reference it in the context of Vygotsky and the I guess book that he had written on that topic, or do I just reference the chapter from educational learning theories?
You only reference what you read. So if you read it in educational learning theories, then you reference educational learning theories.
Okay.
Last year or the year before, I read a really interesting article about urban legends in science, writing. And I think it was about the amount of vitamin C in a blueberry, or what are those little berries called that you used to drink the Ribena drink from? Anyway, someone published, blah said there's this many milligrams of vitamin C in one of those berries. And then everybody else didn't read the original paper. They read blah. And they've gotten it wrong every time since then, because nobody went back and read the original paper to see what was actually said and whether that was a fair and true measurement of a blueberry or whatever it was. So you should always, if you want to reference, primary source from long ago, you need to go and read it. Otherwise, you need to say this other person said that Vygotsky said, because yeah, otherwise you're just kind of perpetuating urban legends in science.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So even if it's very clear what the context is behind what was stated in the chapter, you still should go back. What you said makes total sense. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. You don't have to go back. You can just say, this new person said this thing about Vygotsky. That's a fair and valid thing to say. But then you're not sort of misrepresenting that you actually read Vygotsky, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely.
Just building on to
Yes, I had to
Jasper's
read a lot of.
question.
Yep.
Sorry, Vicky. Just building on to Jasper's question. Jasper, I saw in the AP 7th SCU library guide that if you are referencing somebody like that, you can actually write in your reference, say, for example, Vygotsky as cited in the author name where you read it, and then you give the year of the author name that you read it from. So it's basically you're citing Vygotsky, but you're saying as cited in, and you write the original author name that is in the library guide on the website there.
Sometimes sometimes that's a valid thing to do. And I did do that once in my PhD thesis because I could not get that paper no matter how hard I tried. So I had to say, this
Same
person
here.
said that person said. So sometimes you can do that. But with something like Vygotsky, I don't think you really need to. I think it's perfectly acceptable to say that this new author has said this about Vygotsky.
Okay, that sounds great. So just to be clear,
It can be very complicated.
No, yeah. It's complicated only in the way that it's written, just so that it sounds, just so it doesn't sound weird. So if
Yeah.
I'm correct, you would say, um, uh, Vygotsky, as stated by whoever, said such and said this, and therefore I can extrapolate from that idea that this and such. So, but basically, you would just, if you said as cited by this author, then that would be enough. Okay, I think
I could
makes
just say
sense. I've just never read. I feel like I've just never read it that way before in an article or a book, so it just for some reason doesn't sound right to me. But it makes
books don't
sense.
do it very much. It's more articles that do it than books.
Okay.
And may I add, it should be, I mean, particularly if you're referencing our course materials, then, it's okay to get the course materials in there to show that you've engaged with the content.
No,
Okay.
don't use the course materials. They're not primary or secondary sources. Don't say, as per the Blackboard, don't do that.
No, I didn't mean that. I meant readings.
Yes. Any of the readings that we've got, any information that I've put on the Blackboard has come from those textbooks that I've linked to. Okay, so I've just given you the information that's in the textbook.
Are you more confused now, Jesper?
Sorry, I forgot I'm on video. Am I looking confused? No, you did explain it very well. Thank you.
You actually are not showing on video, if that's any consolation.
Oh, okay.
Just another additional question about the reference.
Yeah.
Sorry, Vicky.
No, you're right.
So if I find the original theory and that's from, say, for example, 1990s, is it okay to quote a work that has been done so long ago, or do you have a preference for more recent references?
If you're going back to an original theory, it's going to be old. For my PhD, I did a lot of reading from Bandura and from Knowles, and they're from the 70s, and that's just when they wrote it, so that you have to go back. And I went right back because I wanted to know what the one source of truth was about these theories. So I went all the way back. So I didn't just rely on somebody else's interpretation of the theory. I went and read it. So sometimes you want to do that, and sometimes it doesn't really matter, and you just want to reference something that's newer. And, if you get like right into research and you're studying something that's really cutting edge, you're going to want those really recent references to support you. You might even draw back still on some of those old references to refute things, or, to see how things have changed. But yeah, I think in this subject, where we're talking a lot about the theories that have changed over time, you can use old references if you want to.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
If no one has any other questions, we're almost to the 10:02, and if you have something else to run off to, then you better run off to it. If you think of any other questions, just put them up in the discussion board, and Reb and I will answer them over there. And whoever's in the next tutorial, I'll see you there.
Thanks a lot, Vicky. Have a good one.
Okay, see ya.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vicky.
Hello. Hello,
Yep.
Vicky. I have one question. So on my class registration, I see I have one class today morning. I had from 10 to 12. So I tried to join, but I didn't got this class. Is there any changes?
No, it's just I think we finished a little bit early this morning. So if you came in after about 10 past 11, we were already done. That's all. There's
It's
there's no attendance or anything for any of the workshops or tutorials, and I don't really mind which one you come to. So even if you're registered for the morning one, if you prefer to come to the night one, then just come. Or if you
so
want to watch it,
same classes.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
I've
good.
got
Thank you very much.
there's 5 of them, 5 tutorials, they're all the same.
Uh-huh.
So you only have to go to one tutorial and the workshop, which is this one.
All good. Thank you very much for the clarification.
Okay, no worries. And they'll be recorded, so you can
Yeah,
watch the
thank
recording
you.
later.
See ya.
Okay, bye.
Bye.